Welcome to part 3. In the previous sections we looked at digital mobility tools and the role of gamification. Now we move from concepts to practice. In this part we will share insights from our pilot activities, where we use digital tools including gamification elements, tracking and dashboards to support behavior change and engagement. These experiences provide practical lessons on what worked well, what challenges we encountered, and how digital tools can be used effectively in real-world settings. Let's begin with insights from Ravenna in Italy. We will hear from Valentina at the ITL Institute for Transport and Logistics, who will share their experience using the mobility management dashboard and highlight the key lessons learned.
Through this presentation, I will briefly introduce the technological approach of the dashboard tested in Ravenna. However, in the next units, we will dive deeper into the pilot action to analyze better the context of the tool, the activities done to implement the action, and the results. Just to frame a little bit the pilot context. The pilot is located in the Ravenna port area. The port of Ravenna is made up of a complex of production and commercial areas overlooking the Candiano Canal, a navigable waterway that runs for about 14 kilometers from the town to the sea. The Ravenna port area employs more than 10,000 people across 219 companies. Although many employees are local residents, a considerable share of the workforce commutes from the broader functional urban areas, with private cars remaining the predominant mode of transport. To address this, the pilot implements a mobility management dashboard, an innovative technological platform designed to optimize and coordinate systematic home-to-work commuting flows. The platform serves as a digital bridge between the individual company mobility managers, the area mobility manager, the municipality of Ravenna, and planning authorities. By providing a centralized dashboard, the pilot digitalizes previously fragmented practices and connects diverse stakeholders through a unified tool. The primary objective is to facilitate the collection of home-to-work data from employees and automate the creation of home-to-work travel plans for mobility managers. As more companies adopt the tool, the area mobility manager can easily compare standardized data and documents. The platform helps strengthening the link between port companies and the public administration to improve large-scale service planning. The digital tool implemented is an open-source mobility management dashboard, adopted following the principle of software reuse among public administration. The platform source code is modular and highly configurable. From a functional perspective, the tool enables mobility managers to input corporate data and deploy digital surveys to employees via secure links. The system automatically processes these inputs to generate analytics, including georeferenced maps, statistical charts, and environmental impact assessment, all exportable in standard formats. Technically, the implementation involved an analysis of data security requirements, authentication protocols, and information workflows to ensure seamless integration in regional systems. The adoption of this platform in the Emilia-Romagna region promoted by ITL through the Green Path project has established a solid framework for the digital transformation and future homogenization of mobility management. By unifying data collection procedures at the regional level, the project has demonstrated how digital tools can streamline communication between corporate and area mobility managers. The primary takeaway is that a centralized digital framework not only facilitates a more fluid exchange of information, but also enables data-driven decision-making, paving the way for a more integrated and efficient regional transport strategy.
Let's now turn to Vienna, Austria, Roman will share their experiences with the Boku Bike Challenge app, highlighting key functionalities and lessons learned.
Hello, my name is Roman from the Austrian partner from the Green Pass project, and I will give you an overview of our app application, what we called Boku Bike Challenge here in Austria, Vienna at our university. So the key functions of the app, these were saved as a gamification platform and providing visualization of trips and rankings. If trips were recorded, and we were focusing on trips only from and to the university with bicycle. Apart from this, there was also a communication tool to send out push messages from us as operators of the challenge to the applicants. The technical feature, so we could have an customized app based with a cooperation of an app provider. The data generated in the app were the number of trips from and to the university, the distance, the duration of the trips, the start time, start date, and this was based on a tracking tool on the app. The visualization for the users and also for us as operators of the challenge were the ranking, the trips, and also the kilometers driven and the CO2 saved because of this mobility. You could, as a user, as a start, tracking automatically by just automatic tracking, or you can also choose a start button when you start your bicycle trips. So the takeaways were the challenge was well perceived by the participant student, and they were motivated them to use it for cycling. And also they recognized, based on a survey before and after, a change in their mobility behavior. The challenge was to define fair rules, so how the ranking is based on, so it is distance based or is it trip based, for example, and this was a little bit tricky also to try to avoid that people can fool the system by using many trips, so we had also a minimum trip distance defined to count as a trip. The customization of all these needs for us with the app was somehow time and resource intensive. However, it was possible as we chosen a very small app provider, and he was very flexible to customize our needs. Thank you very much for listening from our experience from Vienna, Austria.
We continue with Aparna from TU Berlin. Today she will share insights from the pilot implementation of the commuting challenge at the EUREF campus in Berlin. The pilot explored how digital tools such as gamification, tracking, and dashboards can encourage more sustainable mobility behavior by making commuting visible and measurable. She will briefly present the pilot context, the digital tool used, the design of the summer and winter challenges, and the key impacts identified through the evaluation.
The pilot took place in EUREF campus in Berlin, which is a sustainability-oriented campus with universities, research institute, startups and company. This makes it very suitable real-world environment to test the mobility intervention. The target groups were students and employees who commute to the campus on an everyday basis. We ran the challenge in two editions, one for the summer and one for the winter, which allowed us to observe behavior under two very different conditions. In general, the focus of the challenge was to encourage a shift towards more sustainable modes, especially the active and public transport. However, it is important to note that in the second challenge, the focus was even more clearly on promoting active modes, particularly walking and cycling. Overall, the goal was to make sustainable commuting visible, measurable, motivating. In other words, to turn everyday mobility choice into something that people can see, track, and reflect on rather than something abstract. To implement the challenge, we used Changes Fit app, which is a smartphone based platform for tracking and gamifying sustainable mobility. The idea was to keep the effort for the participants as low as possible while making their behavior visible and comparable. In practice, the trips were tracked automatically in the background after giving the necessary permissions. Based on the detected modes of transportation, The app calculated CO2 savings compared to a car based reference and displayed them in an individual and collective dashboard. This meant participants could see both their own progress and the overall impact on the campus. The central elements was the point and the virtual coin system. Participants earn point for sustainable trips, and the active modes like walking and cycling were rewarded more strongly than passive modes. So the more actively and sustainably you commute, the more points you get accumulated with. These points were then converted into virtual coins that counted towards the ranking and challenges. The leadership board made it visible in a very simple way. You could see how you ranked compared to others in your own team or across the campuses. And you could also track your position on an overall time level as well. This created a light competitive element and also a sense of collective progress because you could see not only your own performance but also your own group and how well it was doing. So, overall, the app combined three major things, which is automatic tracking, impact feedback through CO2 and activity matrix, and also gamifying through coins, points, and leadership boards. Technically, this was manageable to set up, but in practice, we learned that communication, onboarding, and explaining these mechanics were clearly as just important as the technology itself. We had designed two different challenges format to test different behavioral mechanism. The summer challenge was more focused on scale and collective impact. It included all sustainable mode of transport, and we had also included the car users to move to a more sustainable means of transport. The main focus was on the CO2 saving and collected campus wide progress. Here, the key question was whether the shared impact and visibility can actually drive engagement and whether the collective framing motivates participation at scale. On the other hand, the Winter Challenge focused more on the effort and individual motivation. It primarily targeted walking and cycling, used individual reward and ranking, and took place under more difficult conditions where we had cold, dark, and less comfortable weather for active modes. Here, we wanted to test whether the gamification and the incentives can actually sustain active mobility under real world constraints. Now, let's look at the impact. To assess this, we conducted a post challenge survey to understand how participants' mobility behavior changed and how they perceived the challenge. The headline result is about 57% of the respondents said that they were more active during the challenge, meaning they walked or cycled more. This already shows a clear activation effect. Looking more closely, 34% reported walking more and 17% reported cycling more. So the main behavioral shift clearly happened in the active modes. What's particularly interesting is the effect on the car users. Among those who use the cars occasionally or several times a week, 50% said that they used cars less than often during the challenge. Even though this is a small subgroup, it shows that the intervention can influence even harder to shift users. Finally, the acceptance of the format is very high. Around 83% said that they would participate again. This tells us that the participants see a value in the challenge and are willing to re engage. Overall, the evaluation shows that the challenge increased active mobility, shifted the trips towards walking and cycling, influenced even the car users, and achieved a high participation acceptance. The data here comes from the post challenge evaluation survey we did. To conclude, I would like to summarize the main lessons from the two challenges. First, the positive part. Digital challenges like these can active more sustainable behavior. We clearly saw many participants became more active, especially by walking and cycling more during the challenge period. Second, it is important to be honest about the type of impact we achieved. The main effect was reinforcement rather than full conversion. Many participants were already using sustainable modes before, but the challenge held them to be more active and more conscious about their mobility during this period. Third, when it comes to the car users, the picture is mixed. We did see some of reduction in amongst the car users participation, which is encouraging, but overall shifting the car commuters still remains difficult. And even more challenging is to convince them to participate at the first place. This clearly is one of the biggest leverage points for the future editions. Fourth, the survey results also shows us that structural barriers matter more than motivation. Time constraint, long distance, safety, or infrastructure issues are still the main reason why people don't commute more actively. This means that even the best designs app cannot fully overcome these constraints on its own. And finally, this leads up to a broader strategic takeaway. Digital tools work best as a part of wider mobility strategy. Challenges like these are very useful for awareness, activation, and engagement, but lasting change requires supportive infrastructure, both good public transport, and institutional measures alongside these digital interventions.
We hope that the insights from our pilot activities provide inspiration for further initiatives and practical implementation. With that, we would like to thank you for your attention. If you have any questions about the pilot activities, the methodology, or the results, we are happy to discuss them. And here you can find the contact details and the project information for GreenPath if you would like to follow up. For more information, visit the GreenPath project website or contact the ITL team in Bologna. Thank you very much for your attention.